Welcome to Thrive and Advance podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shorey Aftahi. I usually have one guest on this show. However, today I'm joined by two very dear friends and colleagues with deep experience in developing business growth. The knowledge and experiences they each share with you will enhance your understanding of the nuts and bolts of developing a sustainable business growth. Terry Norvell is the founder and president of the Enterprise Inc. with 25 years of experience as a trusted leadership coach and business advisor for entrepreneurial organizations and associations. And Murray Janewski, a business growth expert and founder and president of Act One International Corporation with expertise in corporate training and business growth. Hello, Terry and Murray. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited about our conversation. So please tell us a little bit about your background. Terry, tell us more about where you come from and what you do.
Oh, thank you. And it is an absolute honor and a privilege to be here with you and your listeners today. Where do I come from? I come from Toledo, Ohio, if we're going to get real granular on it. However, I've lived all over the country. I now am in Denver, Colorado, and my background is really an entrepreneur from the get start. However, I went corporate, big business for a while with PepsiCo, with Southland 7-Eleven stores, big food industry. And then I got back into more the organizational, entrepreneurial, which is where my heart is. I love meeting owners, meeting leaders where they're at and helping them figure out where do they want to go. And I see that's my role as a coach using the 7 stages of growth. I help people bridge that gap. Where are you? Where you want to get to? And how can I help you to get there as quickly, as easily, and bringing your team along at the same time. And so that's a little bit about me. It's a very diverse background. I love what I'm doing. I am passionate about assisting entrepreneurs. And within larger organizations, I work with verticals. I work with teams. So what we're going to be talking about, it scales from small business to big business. And look forward to talking about it more.
Thank you. Murray, tell us more about you.
Okay, well, I'm a Canadian. I was born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. And when I finished university, I went to work for a large oil and gas company. So I was in corporate America for 14 years, and that took me all over the country. But I always had, like Terry, I had this need. I told my dad when I finished university, I'm going to start my own business someday. So in 1992, I did that and have never looked back. I've worked all over North America, actually a little bit around the world, but mostly in North America with companies in all sorts of industries. And I became a growth curve specialist in 2009. And so that's been 11 years and that's been a great run as well. So that's me.
Thank you so much. So let's dive into the meat of our conversation. So you both are experienced growth specialists. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you find be the secret to success, whether it's for you or your clients.
Ooh, I'm going to go with that's a secret sauce. So we're going to share the secret sauce here. And boy, I have a lot of ingredients in that sauce. And yet if I were to go overall, it comes down to perspective. What is the perspective? What's the point of entry? Does someone see their team as capable, or is the frustration there that they're at the end of thinking there's any possible hope, right? Mm-hmm. So I think perspective is what is the umbrella of it all, really. How are you seeing what you're working with? Are you seeing challenges as opportunities? Are you seeing challenges as stepping stones to get you to where you want to go? Or are you being so frustrated and thwarted by those challenges that I worked with owners who were willing to throw in the towel until we started working together. It's like, oh my gosh, I can fall back in love with my team again, my business again. And it's it's perspective shifting. And that's what I bring it down to.
Excellent. Murray, what's your take?
Well, very similar to Terry, and I've reflected on this question in terms of success of my own business over the years, and it always comes back to two key things. And I really think these two key things are transferable when I'm working with a lot of clients, especially in the small to medium-sized businesses, because they typically start off as entrepreneurs. And number one is work ethic. The desire to work very, very hard at absolutely everything you do, put in the blood, sweat, and tears. And anytime we have brought a partner into our business or a new employee or even a contractor, that's the number one thing we look for. And we also look at, we got to practice what we preach. Mm-hmm. And when I came across the growth curve, 7 stages of growth, I was intrigued by that to say that now these are some things we can really do. If we're going to help our clients with it, we got to do it ourselves. And so the second thing besides work ethic would be to have a coach or a mentor. We preach that and we do that ourselves. And I've had some great coaches and mentors over the years that have helped me. And that's how I would sum it up.
Thank you. Now, you both mentioned 7 stages of growth model. As an entrepreneur or business advisor, which is the deep root of your practice, what attracted you to this model?
Well, what attracted me to the 7 stages of growth is kind of interesting because I was working with a client. It would be a stage 6 client, which is defined as 96 to 160 people. And I was working with the CEO, and I sat down in his office, and there was this big chart on his wall, a colorful chart with a curve on it and lots of graphs. And I asked him, well, what the heck is this? And so he started explaining it to me that this was the 7 stages of growth. And it showed on that chart that they were actually a little bit behind the curve, and everything that I saw in there was what they were doing to work to get ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. And so I was intrigued by that. And then when he was explaining it to me, what really got my attention was these stages of growth are defined by the number of people in the organization. Mm-hmm. So being in the people business, I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And then he went on to explain that at each stage, as you're adding people, the complexities grow. Mm-hmm. And I felt that, in all my years in business, I've come to realize that the number one issue in most companies is communication. And he started explaining, well, there's a lot of hidden agents that will constrict your growth, and if they're not addressed. And I had him tell me more about that. And I found that these hidden agents, these are things that as you're growing a company, you don't see them. You don't see them when you walk through the door in the morning or out into the field or into the facility. And so to be able to surface what those are was really intriguing. So that's what attracted me to the model.
Thank you. Terry, tell us about what attracted you to this model.
Similar to Murray, being in the people business, I have a large body of work that I've been doing for a number of years. I created an advanced leadership program, which spans 3 months. And it helps people grow from the inside out. And when I was still working actually with owners and leaders, something was missing because it was for them individually. And yet, what about aligning the whole rest of the team? So when I was exposed, similar, Murray, it was like music to my ears when you were saying that. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a methodology out there unlike anything else, because I did my homework. I researched the other protocols that's based on the number of people in an organization and gives the structure that is oftentimes missing in entrepreneurial organizations as they go through different stages of growth. I'll quote one of my clients. He said, Terry, this is like painting by numbers for leadership and management. And it is. And it's like having a crystal ball into the future. It's predictable. And this model, it takes the mystery out of leading. And it's like a crystal ball and a roadmap at the same time. So while it provides that structure, it's also flexible to the creativity of the specific organizations, how they go about doing their business. So it's not like a one size fits all. It's the process. I call it a formula that enables the owners, the leaders, the entrepreneurs to do what they do best by knowing what to do at each stage. And what got me so excited once I got further into it and started working with a few organizations, when I would talk them through the hidden agents and the protocols, and light bulbs would go off. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we went through at stage 2. Oh my gosh, that's what was going on. And it gave them a language to go back and say, oh my gosh, that's what we experienced, and now we know why. And going forward, they don't have to have those same frustrations and those same issues at the next stages, because it's predictive. They know. And that has brought such peace of mind and more restful nights for a lot of owners, because now they know. It's like you don't know what you don't know until you're exposed. And it's like, wow, what a breath of fresh air this really is.
So Terry, in short, there are fundamental rules that business owners should understand and keep in mind as they manage and grow their business. So those fundamental rules based on the 7 stages of growth, tell us a little bit more about that and kind of unpack it for us.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great place to start, because there are 4 just foundational pieces. And one of those is that as you land in the next stage of growth, and we'll get into that when we get more granular, you're already preparing for the next stage. So it's a evolving process. It's called a growth formula, right? Because it's based on the desire to want to grow. And another one of those rules is that what you don't get done at one stage, it doesn't go away. It's like building a house. You can't skip some of the stages and expect to have a structure that's going to be solid for a length of time. So you start moving into one stage as you land in the next. There are aspects that just have to get done, and we walk everyone through that. The other one is time will make a difference, because not everybody wants to grow at the same pace, nor do you have to. There's so much flexibility in this model. And then 4th is one that's near and dear to my heart, and it's kind of in your face a little bit, is that if you're not growing, you're dying. And it sounds so harsh, and yet if you take a look at it, if you're not growing, what's happening? There's routinely some aspect of your business that you need to be paying attention to and massaging to take it to the next level. And your competitors are going to be moving ahead around you. So while I think it sounds harsh, I think it's true. I think that's true for each of us. Grow to move forward. That's what a business is about, making a difference, and how we go about doing that. So those are the 4 foundational pieces.
Thank you. Murray, you referenced hidden agents. So tell us a little bit more what those hidden agents are and more details about that.
Yeah, well, there's many. There's many hidden agents, and they all fit into what Terry was referring to as these foundational or fundamental rules. And I just to tag on to that, if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, I look at that on a personal level. We need to be growing and learning all the time. But even in my own business, I was once at stage 2. We've pared back to stage 1. Some of that has to do with age. But it's really important for us not to just say, well, we don't want to grow now in terms of people. Because you define growth in your own terms. And I'll tell you, we'll get left behind, and technology will do it to us. And if we don't keep up with it. So these hidden agents, there's many, and there's three I'd really like to address because I found those to be the most helpful for me in helping clients and with our own business. The first one is called the builder-protector ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got builders and you've got protectors, but what's really interesting is we're not defining it by the person. We're not saying, well, Mary's a builder and Joe is a protector. It's more of a mindset. And sometimes we refer to that as the confidence caution ratio. And so, for example, in stage one, the research that was done by James Fisher shows that we should be looking for a ratio of about 4 to 1. And it's easy to imagine a startup company, entrepreneur gets in there and it's grow, build. So 4 to 1 is perfect. That's the highest it gets. At several other stages, it gets lower, but the lowest it goes to is 1 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that is in stage 3, which is defined as having 20 to 34 people. So if you can imagine you're growing, you're adding people, it's now time for the CEO to let go and not be CEO centric, like it's all my vision, it's all my company, and listening to everybody else. So it's kind of pull back, let's stop, put things on not on hold, but slow down a little bit, delegate, and then ramp up again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the builder-protector ratio, and it's really a matter of, you might have one person saying, I see an opportunity overseas, and we need to jump in and jump on that and go. And it's helpful to have somebody that says, well, hang on, what are the assumptions? What are we up against so that we can make the right decision?
Right. Before you go on, just for the sake of our audience understanding the builder protector, you mentioned it is a mindset. Can you tell us just a brief explanation of what that mindset is? How builders are different than protectors in a business?
Well, the best way I have to explain it would be to look at the extremes. Mm-hmm. And if it was nothing but build mindset, that would be everybody running out, jumping on every opportunity, spending money possibly, and as opposed to the other extreme, which is protector, where we're not doing anything because we're scared.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's being able to take that mindset. When do we build? When do we talk about opportunities versus when do we pull back the reins and take a close look at the decisions we're making?
Thank you.
Can I chime in here for just a minute? And one way I agree with the extremes. When I think about a client I'm working with, he's a visionary. He is just builder, let's just go. And his COO is that protector. And he wasn't as successful until he brought on this COO to kind of ground his visionary, his genius work. And we oftentimes will talk about it as Walt Disney bringing in Roy. Walt being that visionary, just make it happen. Let's just do it. And until Roy came in to stabilize the business, he wasn't really going as far. So I'm glad you started with that, Murray, because that is so foundational to organizations to have that builder and protector, and each person shifts to that role from time to time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Murray. Go ahead with the rest of the 27,000.
Yeah, well, we'll just do a couple because we don't want information overload here.
Yeah.
So builder protector is one. A second one is the 27 challenges. Mm-hmm. And when Fisher did his research into hundreds, literally over 600 companies, he found some remarkable patterns. These 27 challenges tended to emerge at every stage of growth. And we can argue, what if there's 28 or is there 25? And that's not the point. It's that these 27 surfaced pretty much every time. And what was even more remarkable was that at each stage, there tended to be 5 challenges that rose to the surface. Mm-hmm. And so this is something we can actually measure in what we call an X-ray for the enterprise, where we ask enough questions, we can figure out what are the top 5 challenges for your company. Mm-hmm. having the knowledge from the research allows us to predict what those are going to be, both in the stage that we're in now and what's coming at us. And then that allows us to address it. So that's a second hidden agent. The third one, which I really, really like, it's kind of cool, and it's called the 3 gates of focus. And we find that every single issue you come across in any organization comes out of one of those gates. And those 3 gates are people, process, and profit. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting is they're all important at every stage of growth. But what happens is the order of priority of each of those 3 gates shifts as you move from stage to stage. So again, it helps the leadership team sit down and look at where are we today, what gate is the most important, top priority, and what's coming at us in the near future. So, and those are 3 hidden agents without getting too much more granular that I really like to work on with a client.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to ask both of you about tracking and measuring. We know if we don't track, we don't measure, how can we identify success or failure for that matter? So in your opinion, how can you measure a business in terms of the growth curve?
Okay. Well, I'll start off with that. There's a number of things. I mentioned the X-ray a couple of minutes ago, and an X-ray is really an assessment that it's not done on a person, it's done on the company, on the enterprise. Mm-hmm. And it measures things like, what is your builder-protector ratio today? What are your top 5 challenges? The measurement as to where you are on that growth curve is defined by how well you're doing on what we call non-negotiable rules. And I really like the term itself says something. These are non-negotiable. You have to address them or you're destined to have a lot of problems, if not failure. Mm-hmm. So Fisher was able to look at each stage of growth and have what he calls 5 non-negotiable rules for each stage. And the assessment goes in and asks several questions about each one of those rules, and then takes a look at, so how well are you doing on each of those rules? So that's the key measurement for the X-ray.
Thank you. Terry.
I'd like to give a little background because your listeners might be wondering, well, Fisher did this research, and so we're using that as foundational, like a launch off for this model, which has been proven since the 90s to really work. Mm-hmm. And what I particularly value in his work is when he was doing successful entrepreneurial organizations in Colorado and in California, when it was back in the era, your listeners might know, when Good to Great came out, In Search of Excellence, Tom Peters, when they were looking at the larger organizations. Well, Fisher went the opposite. Rather than solve problems, he was researching what makes these successful entrepreneurial organizations successful, from 1 employee up to 500, because the government says small business is up to 500.
Right.
And so this information is statistically significant. The algorithms that are behind the scenes that say these are the 5 essential rules, non-negotiable. I agree, Murray, the non-negotiable rules. We just have to get them handled at each of the stages because they don't go away. They just pop up like a hidden agent or like a whack-a-mole, it's like you think you're solving the problem, but you're really not. And that's the beauty of the methodology, and to know how to get to the root causes of challenges, not just what's on the surface, because so often we think, oh, check it off, got it done, when we're not really at the core of it. And so the methodology is grounded in a scientific study. And that's what makes the X-ray so valuable by comparison.
What comes to mind is the iceberg analogy. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we see the problems above the water and we think we addressed it, but the actual challenges beneath the water, and can we identify what those hidden challenges are? Murray, you were going to say something.
Well, back to the non-negotiable rules. I worked with a client recently, and this client is a drilling company in the oil and gas industry. So they've had a bad hit in the last few years with a recession in that industry. And they were actually at stage 6 and had moved back to stage 5 as defined by the number of people. Mm-hmm. And so the CEO says, well, why would we want to do another x-ray? Because they had done one before. He said, why would we want to do another one? This is for growing companies. Mm-hmm. And we reflected on that quite a bit and said, it's actually even more important because now things are a little bit slower, and now is the time to take a look at the non-negotiable rules that are, did you get them done when you were in stage 5? Right. Mm-hmm. And we found that they actually didn't. They were at about 49, 50%, and you need to be higher than that as you prepare for, we gotta have the optimism that things are going to turn around and you're going to grow back into that stage 6. So what do you need to be doing now? Mm-hmm. And the other thing that, one of the non-negotiable rules at a stage 5 company, which they were now at, is to establish a really cohesive leadership team. Mm-hmm. Because what can happen, especially when you're growing quickly through those stages, is you get big enough and people start operating in silos. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's really critical to then say, we can't have that or we're destined for failure. So we need to have a cohesive leadership team that will focus on execution. And so this was an opportunity for them to actually do that before they start growing again, literally. So I found that really interesting to use the tool, even though the company had gone back in its stage.
Right. Right. Yes, it's really important to pay attention. Did we do everything we needed to do in any stage we put behind us to be successful? It's like a pillar, right? It's a stepping stone. You can't skip steps and continue to have a strong foundation. So, yes.
Correct.
Excellent. So in terms of 7 stages of growth, when you look at your own business, do you actually, as an entrepreneur growing your own business, do you use the rules, the fundamental rules, the hidden agents, and the X-ray to grow your business? Terry?
The answer, of course, is yes, because the information is so solid. Unlike Murray, my business is me, and so I'm clearly a stage 1. I plan on staying a stage 1. So the model works even if you don't plan on adding those people. The methodologies are solid, and the value that I like to bring to my clients, being a stage 1, is to help them understand the distinctions, which I think we'll get into on another call perhaps, between the different stages, and echoing that people, profit, process, that's so valuable. And specifically that profit is always a number 1 or a number 2 in priority. It doesn't go to a 3rd place until stage 7. So as an entrepreneur in stage 1, I'm always in marketing mode. We are. If you're a small business, you're in marketing mode. I think stage 2 as well. We're in marketing mode. So the concepts are solid no matter what size an organization is.
Right, particularly because it is not dependent on the revenue. You could be generating millions of dollars in revenue. You still be in stage 1 organization because of the number of people you're employing, including yourself, in your business. Murray, what is your practical practicing of this model?
Well, I'm with Terry. Absolutely, we focus on the rules for our own stage, and we are a stage 1 company now, and happy to stay there as well, with 3 people. But, it's interesting our primary focus is going to be on what's happening for a stage 1 company. But when I look at helping clients, for example, what I just spoke of in a stage 5 company and having that leadership team be cohesive, it's not unusual from time to time for the 3 of us to have different ideas on where we're going and not be cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
And so we borrow from that and say, well, just because it's labeled in stage 5 doesn't mean it's not a good non-negotiable rule for us.
Right.
And so we have exposure to all of them because we work with different sizes of clients, and we can pick and choose which ones are working for us and which ones aren't, even though we're just stage 1.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Such a wealth of information you shared. And I know this is just an introduction.
Yeah.
So Terry and Murray have agreed to join me in a series of podcasts to break down everything we talked about and introduce today in subsequent podcast episodes. So I'm very grateful that you've agreed to do that. There is so much to unpack and unravel in what you introduced today. So thank you for that. And for you audience, please go to thrive&advance.com and take a complimentary assessment on the 27 challenges, and you will receive a report. This is totally complimentary and help you to get more insight in the challenges that you are addressing and the stage you're in. So tune into our next episode to hear more from Terry and Murray. And thank you, audience, and thank you, Terry and Murray, for joining us. Have a great day.